Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Shade from the Sun. I'm your host, Jamshed Kulkarni, and I am joined here today by my trusty co host, as always, Sanjit Mishra. Sanjit, say hi.
Hi, hello, and welcome everyone. Uh, Today we have a very interesting lineup for you guys. So I hope that you all enjoy it because we've put in a lot of work into this as well.
So, as you can see on your screens right now, the agenda lined up for today is a bit of a it's an interesting concept. So the first thing we're going to be tackling today is crime. Um, Crime in the sense that what is the associate identity between the criminal? The second topic of today we'll be tackling is whether or not the environmental issues of the current age can be solved with more conventional approaches to the whole process. And of course, our third and final segment is going to be off the cuff discussion, Dodgy Dialogue. So, as always, thank you for listening. Drop a subscribe and a like if you like this content. And
Just a word of a little disclaimer. So, Malab, the only reason we want you to subscribe and like is so that we can share these ideas across. The whole agenda behind this is to share ideologies and uh, ideas that can change, that can bring about change. So, as much as you push this thing, it will help us push that idea as well. So
yeah,
that is the whole concept.
so let's get right into it. So, we've all been privy to a lot of crime, not, let's say, personal experiences. I'm sure everyone's seen enough crime dramas and enough um, dramatized crime that they're familiar with the whole idea of murder and theft. And we see it in the news all the time. Someone's been raped, someone's been killed. And it's a horrifying thought because at the end of the day, we are just humans perjuring other humans, right? I mean, we're not talking about how it's come to a point where we look at what the human mind is capable of. Okay, we came up with something as useful as the internet. The way I am talking to you right now from my home, it's allowed me to do that because of a human, you know? And why a human would want to cause harm to another for no justified reason. Okay, let's look at our traditional homicide maniac. Okay, homicidal maniac. Okay? Here's some statistics from our world in data. Okay, more than 400,000 people die from premeditated homicide each year, and in some countries, it is the leading cause of crime. Less than 1% of all global deaths are from homicide, but in some countries, it's almost as high as 10%. Okay, and the homicide rates obviously vary from country to country. I mean, you wouldn't go to Sweden and expect so much murder happening, and you won't find it. But let's say you go to some place like poverty-ridden Mexico. Okay, let's say you went to Guadalajara, and you happen to be in the middle of cartel country. Rates there, homicide rates, are more than 50 times higher than normal. That is just shocking. Like, so many people are killing each other and we don't know why. Let's look at theft. Okay, the largest amount of theft in a sample scale of 100,000 people occurs in Denmark. Can you believe that? The most people who steal in Denmark. Okay, like the
See,
people.
that is what fascinates me so much. I mean, the why behind crime is so fascinating to me.
I mean, the people who
That's
came up
all
with
about
Lego, right? The people who came up with Lego, I can't imagine them in like a cat burglar mask and sneaking into people's homes, and it's really strange.
right,
And
right.
it's the point I'm trying to make here. So on your screens right now, you see three faces. Okay? Now, for the average person, they may not be that familiar. But for people who've been used to consuming criminal content in the sense that you've been watching a lot of CSI, or you've seen Monk, or
Or
you've
in
seen,
general, you're just aware.
yeah, or you're generally just aware of what's been happening. So the first man, the top left, is a man called Jeffrey Dahmer, a notorious serial killer from the United States. He I think he killed roughly 17, 18 people in his entire spree, which spanned like 2 decades. Some he dismembered and, kept their remains. Some he ate, like cannibalized. On the top right, you have a man called John Wayne Gacy, another very infamous serial killer, also known as the quote unquote clown killer. This man fancied himself in the sense that he dressed up as a clown and he went around hunting. He went hunting women mostly, and then again, of course,
There's another guy, right, who did the same thing, who's supposed to be pretty handsome and all that.
yeah, I'll tell you who that
What's his
is.
name?
Yeah, even it's
The
slipping.
Netflix guy,
Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy.
Yeah, that's the one. Ted Bundy is a different topic, but it's good. Like that guy, I could go on with that guy.
Charles Manson, Ted Bundy. These are
Exactly.
some of the legends,
And these guys, they're legends, not legends in the good way. They're infamous.
Yeah.
And at the bottom of your screen is someone you may not know. This is a man who in Indian culture has been nicknamed Psycho Shankar. Now, Psycho Shankar is one of the very few well-known Indian serial killers. I mean, we've always, as our generation has been brought up with like this idea that particular type of people are very aggressive. Let's take the Jats, okay? There's a stereotype around the Jat subculture is that they're very aggressive. We've met some very nice Jats, okay? Like there's no such thing where every Jat you meet is aggressive. They're sweet, caring people if they have to be, but they can,
a huge generalization based on a selective
exactly.
criteria or
It's a
whatever.
very large generalization. So Psycho Shankar, also known as Jay Shankar, was an Indian criminal, sexual predator, and serial killer who was mostly, noted for a series of rapes and murders during 2008 and 2011. And it's roughly believed that he was involved in these rape murder cases, about 30 of them, near Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Andhra Pradesh. And again, this is basically a case of sexual deviancy, a man who was rejected by society and basically took out his frustration on the same people who rejected him. Let's look at Jeffrey Dahmer, okay? I don't know how many of you have seen the movie. There's a movie about Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm forgetting the name.
I think it has his name in it, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I don't remember. Like some Call Me Dahmer or something. Something like that.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
And you look at all these criminals, and there's a running trend. Okay, most of why these people commit these crimes is because they are trying to. At least this is my hypothesis. Okay, I've done a lot of reading up about these kinds of things, and we've been exhaustively looking at what it is that we can, find out about how crime occurs. There is obviously no pinpoint thing. Crime is, of course, it's not a monocaustic occurrence. There are multiple causes to why a crime happens, and for crime to happen, many things happen in a person's mind, many events go through that person's head, and then finally that forces them to commit this thing. Unless, of course, they're a sociopath or a psychopath. Those are the exceptions to this rule. Okay, what I'm going to talk about does not gloss over people who have genuine psychological conditions. I'm talking more about the people who commit petty theft, who commit carjackings, or who commit manslaughter. Yeah.
I would not call manslaughter small.
I'm not saying, okay, so for example, okay, why I say manslaughter is, you're driving down the intersection, you don't see the guy who's crossing the road, or the guy is jaywalking, and you run him over. That's also manslaughter, by the way. That's not,
Right.
It's accidental manslaughter. There's an accidental
category then.
Of course.
Yeah.
The criminal justice system is skewed in a way that, we forget the accidental bit, and we
Correct.
kind of just generalize it. But of course, most of these things happen. Why? Like, look at marijuana use, okay? People are jailed for multiple years over recreational marijuana use.
Right.
And, first of all, marijuana is, I mean,
No, I think our agenda should not be to justify anything here. So I think if you before we answer the why to this, we need to know what we are as a species,
of course.
as human beings. We are apes. That's what we are, and we've always been, wild in nature. And so over a course of like thousands of years, we've constructed our the systems that we have in place today,
Hmm.
and this judicial system, this legal system, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah,
right? So it's this. So obviously, you're going to have some people who are not going to align themselves with this whole thing,
of course.
with the systems, right? So to say that there's a way to cancel out crime altogether, that seems improbable,
That's idealistic.
impossible.
Yeah, that's not going to be
Yeah, that's
possible.
idealistic, but it's not possible,
Yeah,
right? You're always going to have some people who are different,
of course. And I think
right? So,
let's look at the movie Les Miserables. Okay, we've got Jean Valjean who steals bread. Why does he
yeah,
steal bread? And why does any man steal bread? Let's look at the very traditional case. If a man steals bread to feed his starving family, is he really a criminal? We've been asked this question multiple times throughout our lives. As children, we will say, yeah, it's okay because he's trying to feed his family. But when you grow up and you start seeing things from the grocer's point of view, what if that loaf of bread he stole was the last loaf of bread the grocer had? And the grocer
yeah.
is now going to go hungry because this guy tried to feed his family. It is a crime. But this is where degrees of crime come into play. And
I think we need to better understand why things happen, and
mhm,
why, or rather to construct a solution to just cancel out crime altogether.
yeah,
First, what we need to do is we need to look at these crimes individually.
mhm,
I mean, for us to look at crime as one word, it seems wrong, because again, as you said, right, someone stealing bread is definitely not the same as someone killing 200
obviously,
people at once,
obviously,
right? So there's different motives behind this as well, because a bread thief, he has, let's say he's poverty ridden, or he
mhm,
has certain limitations in his life which are not intentional. He
yeah.
wants to be a man of the law, and who abides by law, or who abides by the societal constructs altogether. But
Before we,
there
sorry to interrupt you, Sanjit. Just
yeah,
a shout out to Ayush. Thanks for subscribing, and hope you continue listening.
yeah. Right. So uh where was I?
We were discussing not generalizing crime.
Yeah. So, yeah, so basically, a bread thief is not going to have the same motives behind committing crime, quote unquote,
Obviously,
right? So, what we need to do is you need to first, if you can do that, if it's possible, you need to first differentiate between what kind of crimes are caused by people who have certain specific mental health issues. Okay.
yeah,
And another differentiation to this should be people who are restricted by economic conditions, or other societal conditions, or whatever.
yeah,
So I feel like the point that I will ultimately come to with this is, you know, I mean, I want to suggest a full on framework, if you can call it that, to, solve different kinds of crimes altogether.
okay.
So I will come to that eventually, but I think first we need to look at some other
Yeah,
things as well.
understandably, because my goal, at least, why worry about the criminal justice system, not just in India but across the metropolitan world, is just we don't view criminals as humans anymore. I mean, no matter how much we say they're rehabilitated or they're out on parole, when you look at a man who's committed a crime, or if he's come out of jail, the connotation
Right.
that he's an ex-convict haunts that person for life. It's not something that
Right.
goes away too easily. And I think that's the fundamental question we need to ask ourselves is, if a person has committed a crime, are we going to either associate that identity with that person for the rest of their lives, or are we going to let them get past it? You know,
I feel like the answer lies within, because I mean, if I was asked to answer this question, right, it's strange because I know that the person has gone through the entire process of rehabilitation,
yeah,
or probably he's done his time in jail or something.
yeah,
But I mean, I am always going to look at him as someone who committed a crime, right? And that's not his fault. It's just the way that I've been molded by, I don't know by what criteria and conditions.
yeah,
But that is how everyone's going to look at criminals always. I feel like that cannot change.
yeah.
You know, it's sad, but it's the truth.
I think overall, we do need to. I mean, the problem with the human brain, right, is if we're told that a criminal is a criminal, the mind fails to differentiate between what kind of criminal you are. No matter, okay, so
Right.
let's look at it this way. Okay, you're a 25-year-old man who's just gotten married. You have a 3-year-old daughter. Well, 3-month-old is probably more realistic. I don't think anyone's getting married at 22, or maybe they are. I don't know.
A lot of people are. What do you think?
Yeah, but I don't think. I mean, just let's take a generic case. Okay, you're a 25-year-old man
Yeah.
living in the suburbs, and you get to know that you're living next to a criminal, like an ex-convict. I'm assuming like your instant reaction to that is going to be, I feel unsafe. I feel, uncertain about the safety of my wife and child.
And in reality, even if it was anyone else, right? That person who's not been incriminated yet, he
Mhm.
poses the same amount of threat in
Exactly,
theory.
exactly. I mean, there is, and this ex-convict, and you spend years terrified of this ex-convict. You spend so much on home security. You buy a firearm, all in the hopes that this man next to you is going to pose an imminent danger to your well-being and your family's well-being. But then you realize that this man was incriminated for recreational marijuana use. And then you realize that the same guy one day saw an intruder trying to break into your home, raised the alarm, and prevented actual harm from coming to you. And that's when philosophies change. When the status quo is broken by a complete 360 of, the modus operandi of what at least people think convicts do.
Yeah.
I think we need to understand that once a troublemaker doesn't always mean that he's going to be a troublemaker the rest of their life. You know, overall, I think people need to have a differentiated opinion towards what crime is, and if someone is a criminal, what does that entail? I could go to jail for speeding. Doesn't mean I'm a hardened criminal who's going to make a shiv out of like a plastic spoon and go around poking people's eyes out. It's not going to happen.
Right.
And I think largely looking at how, and I think TV and movies also have this to blame. Look at how much crime is dramatized. There's Breaking Bad. There's The Departed. One of the best movies.
Hold on, just 1 second. Just a quite kind request.
Yeah.
Don't say anything bad about Breaking Bad.
No, I love Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is one of my favorite shows, and like
I mean, going off topic a little bit, I would find Better Call Saul better than that. But okay, coming back to point.
Yeah. So my point. Okay, the best example of this fallacy of crime that has been created is Crime Patrol. This show has single-handedly turned a generation of Indian children to the fact that there is so much crime that goes unreported, and even when it does get reported, it gets solved, which is not true. Guys, let me bring out a very systemic failure. A lot of crime in India goes unsolved, okay? And Crime Patrol Satark, or whatever it's called, is not a good example of how the justice system works here. So I
mean,
think,
as a kid, I always thought, there's always this one CID team out there,
yeah,
who's solving out there,
कुछ तो
left
गड़बड़
and right.
है, but वो गड़बड़ CID में है.
Yeah.
So that was another question that came to mind. Why is there so much televised crime? Why are people so interested in finding out whether or not the
Because
killer was caught, or whether or not the money was returned? And there are two aspects to this, at least what I saw. One is just primal fear. People like being scared, maybe not in the way you think. Like when you go to a haunted house, you are expecting to be scared, right? But that thrill, the adrenaline that flows through your veins, that's what you're craving. the
right.
the second is, of course, the mystery, the who done it, the why done it, you know
Yeah.
have you seen that movie, the Orient Express, some Killer on the Orient Express?
I was about to come to that.
Yeah,
Agatha Christie.
exactly.
She's. I mean, most people have seen the movies, and those that have read the books, Hercule Poirot books.
Yeah,
I mean, you know for a fact that that kind of literature.
yeah,
I mean, that gets you even more interested because
exactly.
yeah,
So I think the
yeah,
crime and justice need to, like, really, we need to have a reality check. Let's look at, I'm not people are obviously not going to watch reality checks on crime because that's just a documentary. Let's look at, have you seen that Netflix series Delhi Crime? That's another example of, it's actually a fairly good representation of, well, I wouldn't say fairly good, I'd say it's a representation, like neutral representation of a very bad gang rape case. I think it's based on the Nirbhaya case. I'm not sure because I saw it very long
okay.
ago. But it shows that police officers are not superhuman. I think that's a
Right.
realization people come to a lot later in life, and I think children should also be indoctrinated that if there is a crime, and if you are genuinely in a fearful position, you shouldn't take any undue risks because of what you've seen on television.
Right. Right.
Scooby Doo. I mean, I love the show, but it's how many? I mean, the fallacy is that the person who's done the crime is usually someone you know. And while that may be true, I don't think it's easy as pulling off a mask and revealing that it's the scientist from 3 episodes ago. It doesn't
Correct.
work like that. So overall, I think what this topic I wanted to cover was that we need to really start taking a hard look at how we represent crime and how we represent criminals in entertainment and in real life. Not all
And
criminals are bad. Like, they may just have been in the wrong place at the wrong time. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not
right.
justifying any
So
crime, by
one
the
more
way,
thing.
guys.
One more thing. I mean, there's certain questions that we need to ask, right?
Hmm.
Because how do we move forward from this?
Yeah.
Like prisons, are they going to be there next in the next 100 years? I would hope not, because I do not see much sense in that because
Yeah.
of imprisonment system altogether.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at, again, the whole agenda of this podcast, for me at least, is that there should be some practical solutions out of this, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise this is just another radio show, which we're not. So I read this thing where Japan
Hmm.
Japan is an excellent example of how crime can be reduced like drastically.
Okay.
So their crime rate has reduced by around 70% over the past 4 decades, and that's something to look at because some things that I noted were in Japan, firearms and weapons of all kinds are still illegal.
Hmm.
Okay. So buying a gun in Japan requires one rigorous background checks,
Yeah.
mental health assessments, and sobriety tests.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they have certain written exams as well.
Yeah.
So owning a gun in Japan is the equivalent of getting into Harvard or something. It's that hard. So
Okay.
that is one. Another was that their justice systems are very efficient
Hmm.
because based on what I read, police in Japan extracts confessions from 95% detainees,
Wow, really?
and yeah, and then 98% homicide cases are solved, and
Wow,
cases are
that is
obviously brought
insane.
up. Right. So, these are some of the factors that go into play, and it's a combination of these factors that has led to Japan being it is today.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, it's going to be difficult for a country the size of India,
Yeah.
right? because Japan is small and it's much easier to control their whatever,
At least
their system.
relatively.
Yeah. So for us, for India to attain a 98% homicide solving rate is a little, I mean, sadly enough, that it doesn't sound, justified in any way.
Yeah.
So uh, I suggested this model, if you
Hmm.
can call it that.
Yeah.
There's this one rough solution that we came up with, and because the agenda again is to suggest ways in which new solutions and new ways in which change can be implemented.
Of course.
So Jamshid, if you can pull up the chart that I sent to you before for the
Yeah,
crime prevention.
folks, it should be on your screen in just about a second there. But continue, Sanjit. Yeah, the floor is yours.
So yeah, so this is what it is. Ignore the graph on the left, the Malthusian growth model. We'll come to that later. I want you to look at the crime prevention model thing. So this is something that we design, and these are our suggestions. So if you see education reforms over time, they should be consistent. They should be consistent reforms all the time, but that will not bring about any tangible change in a short period of time. So until then, to in that short term, what we need to do is we need to enhance the punishment systems for based on the degree of the crime or the severity of the crime. So if you do that in the short term, if you have punishments which are very severe, so that will obviously create a certain sense of scare and fright in general amongst people, right? So in the short term, I believe that this could take care of a lot of crime categories.
But do you really
Because
think? Do you really
yeah,
think it's a good idea scaring people straight? I mean, obviously it works. I mean,
I
our parents have
I have
always,
thought a lot about this.
said that if I mean, I'm not saying parents now maybe don't indulge in capital punishment, but the spanking.
Yeah,
Parents have spanked their kids and it's been done. It's okay, a little slap here or there, the juta that's being thrown at you from across the room because you didn't do
yeah,
your homework on time.
yeah.
That's okay, I understand. But what is the limit here? How do we say that the punishment that we are enforcing on criminals is not too high, or it's just inhumane? When we had the death penalty, right? The death penalty was the worst thing you could get beyond
That
life in
again, that
jail.
is subjective to the type of crime being committed.
Yeah,
Won't you agree?
I guess. But then
Yeah.
if
So
you say that the punishment is subjective to the crime, then for crimes like, if the worst of like the worst punishment you can give to, let's say, a speeding driver is that his car would be taken away, maybe in that case
right,
I could understand.
right.
So I
So
guess.
I'll tell you from what perspective I've been thinking. Okay.
Okay.
So the current biggest problem in India is definitely rape and sexual misconduct.
Yeah.
Right. It's a huge, huge problem in India, and I was thinking. I mean, obviously there are solutions to solve it in the long term.
Hmm.
Right. I mean, people speak a lot. They can. I mean, everyone knows ways or two, to solve this problem in the long term.
Yeah.
But how do you go about changing things in the short term? And that is what matters right now.
I think
So I would
first of all, any rape suspect,
right,
if he's been
right,
convicted, and this may sound extreme, but I think every single rape suspect or committer needs to be undergo chemical castration. Like, I want that guy to not have
that,
any hormones
that's what
whatsoever, and that will solve your short term problem. Because
that is what I'm saying. Criminal punishments. If you increase the severity, that is the one way in which you can create change in the short term.
yeah,
Because if any random person A is hearing about this rapist got castrated or something, right?
yeah,
So that
chemical
creates
castration, different thing
chemical
than
castration.
castration.
So so that's what I'm saying, right? It creates a certain sense of fear in the minds of person A as well.
Yeah,
That yeah, this is the consequence, and along with that, I mean, obviously punishments are not effective enough alone.
yeah,
So there's this thing. I was talking to someone before, and I was questioning this whole social media activism thing, right? Because up until like last week or so, I personally did not see much sense in that, because I like to see things that can bring about solutions,
Yeah,
right? So I was trying to figure out what kind of what does this do? I mean, if someone is posting something about raising awareness of some sort, what is the final outcome of this? So it was brought to my attention that this is necessary, because this apart from the criminal punishment thing, there is this requirement for conversation and raising a certain general awareness
of course.
about things. So I mean, to whatever extent it works, even amongst 3 to 4 people,
Yeah,
I mean, I would say that it's something worth investing into.
of course. And I think I
So
find it funny
yeah, yeah,
that there's been a lot of videos circulating on Instagram and all where this reporter goes up to a guy and he's like, what do you think rape signifies, and do you think it's consensual? And the kind of answers these guys give is like shocking. Like, this is the 21st century, you wouldn't expect these guys to have these kinds of answers. And
right.
in the same
So that,
breath,
that is a different, yeah. Sorry.
in the same
Continue.
breath, they're saying things like, we respect women, we respect the mother.
Yeah,
I don't think they do,
they
because
definitely don't,
on
because it's actually a public relations move, I feel.
yeah, and this education reforms thing needs to be addressed in schools. Like, women, in terms of overall health, they live longer than men. They are the reason why species get propagated. Men alone can't do jack. We're just stuck here
See,
looking at each other.
see, it's a question of mass culture also, because if you see Japan,
Yeah,
there it's actually true that their culture suggests that non-violence is the way forward, or
yeah,
the way to go about.
yeah.
So I mean, you could just see World War II, right?
Hmm.
They've been I don't know my history well enough, but they were nuked twice.
Yes, once at
Yeah,
Hiroshima and once at Nagasaki.
yeah, they were nuked twice, but they did not respond, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't know that
Okay. So here I
that's
must interject. Okay. They were nuked
please.
once at Hiroshima.
Yeah,
They still didn't give up. That's why they were nuked the second time. When they were nuked the
yeah,
second time, they were forced to. The Emperor Hirohito at the time said that, guys, listen, we can't take another nuke, otherwise we're doomed.
huh.
So it's I get the philosophy that you're trying to say. Like, I understand
Yeah.
what it is that the point that you're
So
trying
I
to
feel
make.
that is what we lack in India, because
True.
there's this cultural gap. I
Yeah.
mean, first of all, our population is so diverse, because in terms of age, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, youth, old. I mean, I'm not too sure about the ratio involved here, but
Yeah.
there's always going to be a huge diversity of opinion,
Of course.
and that it's really hard to bring uniformity to that.
Yeah. But I
So
think
if conversations can help that, I mean, so be it. That's
I think opinions will always remain diverse. What we can unify is the singular approach to, number one, sex education,
yeah,
and number two, the inherent, focus we give to the male offspring. I think
yeah,
that's what needs to change. And I don't know when that will change and how it will change, but it needs to change. If that doesn't,
right,
none of this is going to change. So,
right, correct.
all right. So that concludes our segment on the criminal identity. We'll be moving on now to our next segment, which addresses the inherent problem of the environmental solution. You know, for decades, we've been trying, quote unquote, trying to solve the global warming issue. And we've come at it from a number of ways. But frankly, what we see right now, looking at the clock, they say there are about 12 years before we run out of chances to save the environment. And in 12 years is when, I think 2030 is when the United States aims to go no emission, like no fossil fuel, nothing. They're going to be completely electric. I don't know if that's going to happen, number one.
It- It's
And
hard to.
number two, if it's going to happen, how is it going to happen?
Right.
They're obviously, the United States is the best example of a capitalistic economy,
Correct.
and looking at India, right? I don't see much when it comes to environmental reform in India. I mean, I don't even know if we're really part of the Paris Climate Accords. Are we? I'm not sure. We should be, considering
I mean,
we're.
I'll Google that.
I mean, considering we are probably the biggest polluters next to China. I remember that phase a couple of years
Yeah,
back.
we are.
Yeah,
India is set to achieve 2 of 3 Paris Agreement goals.
yeah. So I remember
Sounds
a couple of years back, Delhi was blanketed in just this sea of fog, not fog, smog. Sorry, and
long.
it was just
Yeah.
so polluted. Our house had to buy multiple air purifiers. The concept of an air purifier then was alien to me. I
Correct.
I mean,
That's true.
what I was like, I'm already breathing air, but it's come to a point where we are polluting the air so much that an entire geographical area has to buy machines to repurify that air, and that is just bizarre.
Correct.
It indicates to me that we as humans have started taking and taking and taking so much that we are essentially poisoning ourselves. it's not even
So,
it's not even nature giving us a sign. It's not like nature's giving us a middle finger and sending us like a volcanic ash storm. It's us. This is all our work.
right.
So
So I think one of the biggest problems with this whole environmental talk is that we talk a lot,
yeah.
right? Can you pull up this very? I would not criticize it because some people like her a lot,
Hmm.
but I do respect her. I mean, I'm not going to go on. Can you play the video that I sent to you
Sure. Yeah.
of
It's on
that
your screens now,
It's
guys.
all wrong.
of that kind woman?
I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Are we able to play it?
You have
Yeah, it's
stolen my
on their
dreams
screens now.
and my childhood with your empty words. And yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight? You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe.
Yeah, and thanks to the Telegraph for that clip there.
Yeah.
We've been grateful to
So,
them because they've been giving us a lot
Jamshid,
of content. Yeah.
what do you think about this video?
I think Greta makes a valid point. In maybe not all of her points are valid because she is, of course, driven by a lot of emotion. And I think that emotion is fair. She's just a child who has
Yeah.
been shoved into the limelight because she feels passionately about the planet. And that's
So
great.
you have a little I mean, would you say that you support her agenda to
I
an extent?
empathize with her agenda for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, her agenda being environmental responsibility, at least for major corporations and countries.
Right. So I'll so when it's very hard to speak against someone like her because
Her cause is
at the
noble.
because at the outset she's fighting for something noble, right? As you just said.
Yeah.
But what is she doing? That is my question. You go onto a platform like that and you say that how dare you talk about money?
Mhm.
I would like to know what it is that she has done over the course of, I don't know how many years she's been fighting for this.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'm not criticizing her for what she's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, whatever she's saying is right. I mean, it's the rich people are. I mean, that is how she's picturing the entire thing.
Yeah.
Rich people are sitting on their leather couches and just smoking cigars and all that. That is how she looks at it. It's like a
Yeah.
Tintin comic, more like for her.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the point that I'm coming to here is that I think she's forgetting that money is the only way you can actually solve this problem. So, how dare anyone talk about money? Yes, because I feel like that is the key to this entire thing.
I think the how dare anyone talk about money that she's referring to is money away from the environmental agenda. I think that's what needs to be clarified. At least, obviously, because she's emotional and she's on the verge of tears, she's not going to say, guys, I don't mean money in general. I mean money geared towards industrial revolutions, guys. Okay, thank you. She's not going to say that.
Right.
But I think what she's trying to say is that people have been talking outside of the save the environment. They've been talking in circles around the idea. They talk about small neglectful aspects of how they can make a very minute difference to the rainforest preservation, or they can reduce O2 emissions, something like CO2, not O2. O2 is good for us, guys, sorry. CO2 emissions. And we need to really, aside from the fact that she's just a school child who worries for her future, and she rightly should. In 2020, I did not expect to be at a point where in September, like late September and early October, I'm still switching on the air conditioning. And if I don't switch on the air conditioning, I am visibly and internally uncomfortable. It is so hot here. And
Right.
I mean, I understand Delhi is an arid landscape, as I've been taught in class 7 and 8 geography. And that's the only thing I remember from there, guys. I mean, arid Delhi, and that it's a zone 4 seismic zone. So,
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is that I agree that money will solve the issue. I mean, obviously, it requires money to build solar panels. It requires money to build wind turbines. It requires money to build hydroelectric dams. And it is so unfortunate that we are not, like, can we really make a difference monetarily? I think she's also trying to make that point.
It's not unfortunate. It's really not unfortunate. Because I'll come to that. But before I come to that, I mean, I think it's necessary to understand the timeline of this entire environmental talk that we've been talking about. Right? So, I mean, we've always known, right, the global warming exists, and
Yeah.
climate change is real. We've always known this. At least the smarter ones have always known this.
Absolutely.
Right? So, back in I think 1970s or 60s even.
Okay.
So, this is when talks of bringing about real solutions started to come in. And that back in 1968, there was this ecologist called Paul Ehrlich. Okay.
Okay.
So he suggested this thing called. He based it on. He has a solution. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he based his entire solution on this one aspect called. There's a school of thought called Malthusianism.
Okay.
Right? It's a little hard for me to even say, but it was founded by this guy called Thomas Robert Malthus.
Okay.
And if you can pull that chart up, which you had shown before.
Yeah.
So Malthusianism suggests that population grows at an exponential rate, and things like food supply grow at a linear rate.
Okay.
So once the chart is up, I'll be able to better explain it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So on the left, you're supposed to look at the left graph. So if you look, population, this is what Robert Malthus suggests. And he said the population grows in this direction, non-linear. And I mean, there's obviously, there's no uniformity to it. That's what he suggested. And
Yeah.
he said that our food supply grows at a standard rate.
Mm-hmm.
So, and people all across, governments all across, they took this study to be, like next level, and this defined that era altogether. So
Yeah.
all the solutions started to revolve around this particular problem, population.
Yeah.
So this ecologist Paul Ehrlich went on to suggest the most radical and the most scrappy do evil kind of solution that I've ever heard of.
Mm-hmm.
So he said that he wrote a book called The Population Bomb
Okay.
in 1972 or
Okay.
something.
Mm-hmm.
He said that he predicted that hundreds and millions of humans would perish because of this Malthusianism concept.
All right.
Okay. He compared this whole thing to cancer growth. His solution was to increase taxation on diapers, subsidizing vasectomies. Then the weirdest thing I've ever heard is, and even spiking food aid, water supply, and drugs with sterilizing drugs. Basically, you
wow.
cannot have kids anymore, and holding a lottery system for the antidote.
Wow.
So this was where we are. This we were here like at in this time 1960s.
Mm-hmm.
So then again, another ecologist called Garrett Hardin in 1968 said the freedom to breed is intolerable and we must put a stop to it.
Yeah.
Okay. So both of these ecologists were disproved and proven wrong, as a study in the next 2 decades proved that calories available per capita, in fact, increased over the next 2 decades
Okay.
due to improved agricultural technology.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole concept that he had, the Malthusianism thing, that population grows at a exponential rate and food supply stays stagnant,
Yeah.
that was starting to be questioned. Okay.
All right.
But recently in 2015, there's this guy called Ronald Bailey.
Okay.
He wrote a book called End of Doom.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, he recognized and identified something so simple. He said that when this guy, Robert Malthus, when he suggested the population term,
Mm-hmm.
he did not consider that the population term includes some of our sources of food supply as well.
Yeah.
When you say population on Earth, it includes animals and crops as well.
Of course.
So that is the economic definition of it, right?
Yeah.
So he disproved the Malthusianism school of thought altogether by saying that food supply can also grow exponentially.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is where we come to, because before I go forward, I feel like this should shut all veganism extremists as well, right?
Okay.
Population growth is exponential and food supply can only be considered exponential, or at least at par with population growth, if animals are included in our food supply.
Yeah.
Correct? So if you cut them out of the equation, we are bound to run out of food faster. Right? So, and we don't, and we shouldn't have enough farmlands to support everyone's vegan diets.
Yeah.
So that was just one small aspect that I wanted to include.
Mm-hmm.
So point being that population control is not that not the sole answer we're looking for.
Okay.
So in this David Attenborough,
Mm-hmm.
he just released his new movie called Life on Our Planet.
Okay.
He gave us this brief solution. He had a 10-point solution, 8-point framework,
Mm-hmm.
which said one is control population, sustainable and renewable energy sourcing, controlling overfishing, reducing farmland,
Mm-hmm.
eating less meat, halting deforestation right away, then pushing the sustainability agenda further at a micro scale,
Okay.
then changing consumption behavior to benefit the environment.
Yeah.
And then there was introducing a global treaty and constructing a network of no fishing zones in international waters.
Yeah.
All right. And last was doubling down on willpower.
Yeah.
All right. So that was his solution, and I do agree with most of it. But I think we need to look at population control in a different way now, because even though the whole Malthusianism thing was disproved, it does not mean that we should go ahead and breed endlessly, because the first principle of economics is that our resources are finite and their allocation is becoming increasingly difficult or challenging, right?
Of course, and I
So
think, I mean,
yeah,
allocating resources and generally saying that we need less people on the planet, I feel is a it's not possible, because telling
is it though?
I mean, see, okay, this all boils down to the whole thing that can you tell people how many kids they can have, how many kids should they have?
I have one answer for that: China.
Yeah, okay, China is the only example for that, because it is the only
It's the,
country in the world that has managed to enforce its one child policy.
yeah.
And why? Because it is run by a communistic dictator, and it is run by a man
Okay.
and series of underlings that enforce this. And
Correct.
it's a debate that's gone on for ages. Is it correct? Is it, should it be allowed? You tell someone in Europe, or you tell someone in the US that you can only have one child, there'll be riots in the street. People will forcibly copulate. No, people will forcibly copulate to make sure they have more than one child. Because, and this is an age old debate, the moment you tell people what they can and cannot do with their body, especially with their reproductive organs, it does not end well. The best example of this is the abortion stance, Roe versus Wade. When
Yeah.
it's not okay to tell anyone, at least this is what I feel, it's not okay to tell anyone that, listen, buddy, you cannot have a son and give him a sister or a brother. Sorry, it's for the betterment of the planet. If it was me getting told that, I wouldn't buy it for a second. I'd be like, bro, this is like some amendment or some right ka suppression. I'm assuming. I don't think there's any right in the constitution which says right to having sex. I don't think that actually exists anywhere. But I think the basic idea is I can do what I want with my body. And it is fair. What we need to understand more as humans who are living off this wonderful planet is that we need to also start giving back. We cannot just take and take and take. For every one tree we cut down, we should plant 100, maybe not 100, 10 more.
Right.
Deforestation in the world is, I don't have the statistics with me right now, but it's going out at a rapid rate. There was recently a project on YouTube, I think last year, where they spoke about for every dollar donated, or for every $10 donated to the streamer, the streamer would plant 1,000 trees. And that entire project got like $1.5 million in donations. And that project is currently in process. Like the Department of, I think, some forest, whatever, across the world, wherever these streamers were, the Department of Forestry and Animal Welfare, respectively, is going around planting those trees with the money that normal people provided. And
Very it gives an unrealistic picture of how afforestation could work, because I feel like, again, David Attenborough in his film, he mentioned that the only way, we have a lot of farmland. Okay, let's get that clear.
yeah.
So what we do is we get rid of forest areas, and we turn those lands into farmable and cultivable land.
But
That's what we do.
removing forests for cultivable land is a non-stop process. That's what we've been doing till date.
That is what we've been doing. But there's a solution to that. And see, because having forest area it's very important, because it takes in the carbon and it locks it away from the from us, right? Essentially.
Yeah, and also it's pretty. I mean, if any of you have been lucky enough to visit an actual forest, you will.
I don't remember the last time I went to a forest, to be honest. But yeah, coming to that point, forest areas are essential. Okay, And how do we go? The question here is, how do we go back to building more, expanding forest area?
Yeah.
Because that seems like a impossible task.
Yeah.
And so David Attenborough said that the only way this is going to happen is by agricultural technology improvement.
Yeah.
Right. So we will have to learn to adapt and to grow more with lesser available land.
Yeah, and
Because
that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, why do I think this with the whole ideology of doing more with less comes from where? We've always been told in school that recycling and reusing and energizing old resources, whatever it may be, is a good idea and it's something that should be interested in. I'm sure at some point in their lives, someone was told to make something out of waste. We had a activity in school called Best Out of Waste, where you had to take quote unquote waste material, like, food scraps and rubbish papers and something like that, and make something out of it. Although whether or not it was useful was a different story. People would just come up with some crappy paper mache figure and be like, aha, dekho, best out of waste. Huh? So good, guys. That's not really what we're going for. Best out of waste means, something like biogas. Biogas is what? Just manure and food waste and a bunch of all this composted together to make flammable to make flammable gas, which can be used for cooking. And that's a wonderful example of what kind of ingenuity we can come up with. But the unfortunate thing is that we've not been able to use that kind of ingenuity more. I think there is, first of all, I think this is a very conspiracy theorist kind of viewpoint, but I think there are people trying to suppress the ecological processes moving forward. I think there is a huge non-environmental lobby that is saying, guys, we cannot let solar power take over. We cannot let turbines take over. Otherwise, the fracking industry and the oil and gas industry are doomed. I'm sure that there are proponents for this.
That's a very small portion of people who are doing that, even if that's happening.
Exactly. I'm just saying, this is like, Illuminati stuff that, there's someone, big bad guy in the background saying, hey guys.
But what would be the incentive for them to do anything like that? That's the question.
Incentive, it's money. I mean, it's very evident that, okay, let's look at the Green New Deal. Okay, this is a environmental policy that the Democrats in the US are pushing to be passed in the Senate. It raises taxes on individual taxpayers, not by very much, but it's so that renewable sources can be improved and renewable sources of energy can be implemented. And there are so many lobbyists against that. Mike Pence in his recent vice presidential debate said that it's a waste of time and blah, blah, this, that, and the other. All that aside, we have to take stock of what's happening in the world. Okay, the ice caps are melting. That's a fact. And to anyone who doesn't believe in global warming, buddy, I think you've got the wrong idea. I think you're living under a rock, because global warming is present not just at the ice caps, it's present in your current room.
Correct.
If you had enough sensibilities to go out and see that it's actually warmer than it was 10 years ago, it's shocking. The changes are shocking. Even though we say, oh, it's a 1 degree increase or a 2 degree increase.
Yeah.
That 1-2 degree increase is the difference between you surviving the next summer and you not. You've heard that saying, na, boond boond se banta sagar. It's the same logic. With incremental change, the massive, huge rollout is going to come.
I'm not sure if I agree with that, to be honest, because we've been doing that, I said this boon thing has been happening for a while. I mean, how long do you expect that to go on for? I mean, where I'm coming to is, I think there's a solution that we have. Obviously, it's very hard to execute if not impossible.
Yeah.
But I feel like majority of these changes that are required, right? They are not happening at your home.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. If you're doing something like, turning your lights off on time and not using the AC, that's all nice. Obviously, you're contributing to, 0.0001%
emissions.
Conservation. Yeah, whatever. So you are contributing. I'm not denying that.
Mm-hmm.
But for us to come to a point where, where we can say that yes, the Earth's degradation is receding now, and maybe we might have a chance at living longer. I
Yeah.
mean, Murphy's law is that we're going to die, humans will die, and the planet will have to perish at one point. So there's no denying that, but the whole agenda is to prolong it as much as possible. Okay.
Exactly. But
So
it's
for us to come to a point where we can say that yes, now we're doing better than before, it's only going to happen when you get the large capitalists. I mean, I'm saying that if you get people like Elon Musk and multiply them by 10, I mean 10 Elon Musk, right?
yeah.
They're capable of making changes that are more realistic and practical, and that will actually make changes.
Of course, and
mean-
I think we touched upon this point last time also, last Sunday. Philanthropy will only get you so far, and
No, I'm talking
no,
about
no,
philanthropy.
I know what you're trying to say. But I think the debate on the environmental crisis of how it should be done now needs to be solved. We are running out of time. We are running out of time in every aspect of the word. There is no more leeway. If we don't make something or do something that counts in the next decade, you and I are going to be looking at an extinction level event. Like, if humanity dies out after that point, I don't think there's any coming back.
I mean, that's what I'm saying, right? Murphy's law. It is going to happen. The extinction cannot be avoided.
Well,
I mean,
therein.
when I disagreed with Greta Thunberg or Thunberg, whatever her name is, I'm not sure.
Hmm.
But she said that we are talking about a mass extinction level crisis here.
Yeah.
I mean, it is going to happen. It has happened.
So what I think is going to happen, right? I think that I'm genuinely hoping that one day we discover speed of light travel, and we find a way off planet Earth once it is to a point where we can't do anything. But I think I don't necessarily agree with the fact that the extinction is coming. It will come if we go at this rate of the things we're doing now. But if we go to a point where we are giving back to the earth, to a point where the earth's resources are allowing themselves to be renewed, which is a very idealistic thought, and it's very out there, we need to also take stock of the fact that so much which has already happened, so much of the damage we've already done just can't be helped. So many species have gone extinct which cannot come back unless we find a way to genetically clone them, and cloning is another whole topic of discussion which we can keep for later. But overall, I think
all I'm saying is that we've seen an ice age before, we've seen the dinosaur phase before.
Yeah,
those are all phases. I mean, dinosaurs gone, we're not in the ice age anymore.
but there you realize that the dinosaurs and the mammoths were not self-aware. They were not intelligent human beings. Intelligent beings, sorry, not intelligent human beings.
That is what I'm saying. As intelligent beings, the Homo sapien, or whatever we call it.
Yes, Homo sapiens.
Homo sapien. That is the recent thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So as intelligent beings, all we can do is either two things: find an alternate place to stay. That is my best guess that I would say. Another is to prolong it as much as possible and then die.
Of course.
So,
I think
I don't know,
overall,
it sounds very sadistic and all, but it's the truth. So I just don't see I just don't understand the alarming behavior and the fake urgency that these people are creating.
no, but I think the urgency that they are creating is good. I don't necessarily think it's fake, because
It is good.
we are at a crossroads. We've been this line has been used throughout the decades. Crossroads. We're at the point of no return. But genuinely, the point of return now is coming, and it is coming faster than you think. And I think we can leave today's discussion at that. Thanks, guys, again for listening. This has been Shade from the Sun. We go live every Sunday. Uh, if you'd like to keep hearing from us, subscribe to our Instagram as well. Follow our Instagram. It's you can just look up Shade from the Sun on Instagram and you'll find it. And I'd like to thank every one of you for taking time out of your Sunday afternoon, listening in. And for those of you who listened in after the podcast was completed. So
drop your comments. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you what your thoughts have been on the discussion we've been having so far. If you have any suggestions for a segment we can do, we are more than welcome, open to it. You can reach out to us individually as well on Instagram. I will have an email address set up for this, so you can email in your suggestions as well. And overall, I think I speak for the both of us when I say thanks for listening.
And one last thing, if you follow us on Instagram, just remember that your likes do not really matter to us. We want you to engage in the conversation. So if you're listening to any one of our clips, make sure to voice your opinion or say something about whatever's being talked about, because that is how you get change working.
If you ever wonder about how you can make meaningful change happen, this is one of those ways. We've been thinking about a lot of the times how we've engaged with our community and we've engaged with our friends to get to a point where we can actually change something. So tune in next Sunday and have a good one, guys.
All right. Thank you, everyone.